Ma'am, we were discussing about networks, ma'am, different types of networks.
Different types of networks were over. Okay, then we have discussed about WAN in wide area networks. We have discussed about circuit switching, packet switching, because we require the path identification. Okay, switching elements are needed, so we require some switching techniques. So first, traditionally we used circuit switching, then packet switching. Okay, then later on frame relay and ATM networks. Okay, so frame relay means in terms of frames the data will be transmitted, with additional information like error control bits will be added. Then coming to ATM networks, asynchronous transfer mode. So that networks we are going to use with cells. Okay, so instead of frames we are using what? Cell relay. So the cell is of what? Same size. All the cells will be of same size. But if you go for frame relay, the frames will be of different sizes, variable size. So that is the main difference we are observing. Okay, then we have discussed about local area network, and then coming to protocol architecture. So what is the protocol architecture? When the two systems, source and the destination, are sharing the data, they require some software. Okay, software and hardware coordination is required. So for software and hardware coordination, some required functionalities. Okay, some number of functions, number of operations to be performed on the data and for the transmission. Okay, so for these operations you require to develop the code. Okay, so that software we are going to have in terms of different modules. So each module is going to handle one functionality, and these modules will be of layered manner, I told you. Okay, so that's why it is said to be what? Layered architecture, protocol layers we are going to call. Right, so we have seen in the last class about this diagram, right? So each layer, it is going to perform some operation that will be given to its bottom layer, and it is going to perform the operation and it will be given to its bottom layer. Like this it is going to proceed. Okay, when you take the two layers at the same level at source and destination, they will be following same rules. Okay, so that is called protocols. Yes or not? What the rules will include? Syntax, semantics, and timing, right? So what is the format of the data? Okay, what are the control information and what is the timing information to match the speed between the source and the destination. So these three, syntaxes, semantics, and timings, will be same at the same levels at source and the destination. Okay, when you take layer 3 at source, at destination, layer 3 will have what? Same features. Okay, same format, same control information, same timing information. All those will be maintained accordingly. So that is what the rules we are going to call as protocols. Okay, so each layer will have its own protocols, its own set of rules. So we are going to have the number of protocol layers. So that is what protocol architecture. Any network architecture, it is going to follow the layered manner. Okay, and I already told you there are two commonly used protocol architectures. One is TCP/IP and the second one is OSI reference model. Okay, so first we are going to discuss about TCP/IP protocol architecture. Okay, TCP/IP protocol architecture. So first try to observe here. I have divided the diagram into 4 parts. Yes or not? So there are 4 layers. That means the TCP. Yes, somebody raised the hand. Any problem? Yes, ma? Any problem? Okay, fine. So if you don't have any problem, please tell me. If you have any problem also, please tell me. Okay, fine. So coming to TCP/IP protocol architecture, please see carefully. There are 4 layers. Okay, there are 4 layers. So that means whatever the software you are going to design for the network communication software, so that is going to have 4 modules. Clear? So this is the top module, that is top layer. We are calling it as application layer. Then the second layer, that is transport layer. The third layer, that is network layer. And the fourth layer, we are going to call it as physical plus data link. So this is also called as host to network layer. Okay, so you have to remember these 4. Okay, application layer, transport layer, network layer, and physical layer. Okay, application layer, transport layer, network layer, and physical layer. Okay, so to understand these layers, let us take one simple example. Okay, I'm using, I want to send a mail, okay, to somebody. I'm using what? Gmail application. So I'm using this application. So that means what? I require some application to send the message. So what kind of message it is? I'm transmitting a mail. Okay, so I require some mail application. So whatever the application which is interacting with directly to the user. Okay, so that we are going to call at application layer. Okay, I want to send a message means I cannot directly put the message on the lines. Yes or not? I cannot send the signals directly. I cannot generate the signals automatically and I cannot put them on the wires. So that is not possible. What I require the user require one interface. Okay, so I require what? Some mailing application, like Gmail is one application or Yahoo Mail is another application. Okay, so I require some application software. So whatever the applications are available, okay, so that application will come under the top layer, that is what? Application layer. So what does it do? Application layer will interact with the user. Clear? Okay, application layer will interact with the user. That means whatever the user operation, what operation he wants to perform, like what the message he wants to transmit. So for that, he requires some application. Okay, so that application will come under the top layer, which is directly communicating with the user. Okay, now you can see there are some names in the boxes like telnet, FTP, SMTP, CNS. So what are these? So these are said to be the protocols, okay, the rules. So in the application layer, there will be some rules, okay, like if you want to transmit a mail, you require a mail transmission application. If you want to transmit a file, okay, you require some file transmission application. If you want to communicate remotely with another system, you require what? Some remote operating application. So for each application, there will be different protocol, different rules. So if I want to transmit a mail, so mail means what I require? I require the mail ID, my mail ID, okay, and the other person, so to whom I want to transmit, okay, so that mail ID I require, right? So the sender mail ID, receiver's mail ID I require, the content I require, and the content also will have some format, some attachments I may do, right? So all these things, so there will be what? A particular format for mail. So that product, the rules, the formats will be defined by what? Some application protocol. That, like here, SMTP is there, that is simple mail transfer protocol. Okay, please do not do all these annotations. Okay, SMTP protocol. So what it is going to do? So it is providing what? The set of rules, like how the mail has to be transmitted. Okay, the mail has to be transmitted with some particular format. Okay, so simple mail transfer protocol. So that is defining. So how? So Just wait 1 second. Let the azan is over. Okay, right? So what this application layer is doing, it is providing some set of rules for transmission, okay, for interaction with the user. So what the user want to perform, so what kind of communication, whether it is mail transmission or file transmission. If it is file transmission, it has to follow FTP protocol. Okay, if it is remote communication, it has to follow telnet protocol. Okay, if it is network management, it has to go for CNS. So all these will be what different types of protocols are defined at the application layer, which are going to tell the rules to be followed at the user level. Okay, that means how the user have to interact. Like if he wants to transmit a mail, he has to use a mail application. So in the mail application, what are the format? So what are the syntaxes? What are the semantics? Okay, what are the timing rules? So all those you have to include at this application layer. So that is what the topmost layer, application layer in the TCP/IP protocol. Okay, and the second one is transport layer. Okay, so transport layer, it is the, please mute yourself. So second layer is transport layer. So transport layer, what it is doing, it is going to provide two kinds of protocols. One is TCP and another one is UDP. So what it is going to define is, TCP is transmission control protocol. It is what connection oriented protocol. Okay, and UDP is what user datagram protocol, that is connectionless protocol. So at the transport layer, it is going to define how the message has to be transmitted. Okay, how the message, I am telling what I am using some application. So some application, I want to transmit the message, but how this message has to be transmitted. Okay, whether I need to go for connection orientedness or whether I have to go for connectionless. So if I am going for connection oriented, I will be using what? Transmission control protocol. If I am going for connectionless, that is I am going for what? UDP protocol. But what is the difference between connection oriented or connectionless? Like I'll tell you one simple example. Okay, so connection oriented means what? Before transmission of the message, I have to establish a connection. Okay, like if I want to communicate with the remote system, right? I am using what? Telnet application. So remote system. So if I want to communicate, the client server systems, they want to communicate. So what happens here? First, the connection has to be established with the remote system. Okay, then the communication will happen, right? So that means for communicating with the remote system, some operation I want to retrieve from the remote system, I want to establish a connection. Or else, one more example I can take. If I want to communicate on the phone, so what I am going to do, I am going to establish a connection. I am dialing the number, okay, and the connection will be established once the other one picks the call. Okay, so once they are picking the call, they are in call. So this is what connection is established, and then the voice communication is happening. Okay, right? That is these type of process is said to be what? Connection oriented. Okay, then if you go for mail transmission, so in the mail transmission, both the sender and the receiver need not to be in the same time, so they need not to establish a connection. I'm just giving what is the destination mail ID. Okay, so destination, what is the address I'm telling, so to whom the message has to be received. So that I am telling, but I am not establishing any connection. So that is what connectionless service. So if I am going for connection oriented service, so what kind of protocol I have to use? If I am going for connectionless service, what kind of protocol I have to use? Okay, so at what time it has to be delivered and all these things. Okay, and for which application the data has to be delivered. Like if I am sending a message means, so that will be received by the destination in the same application. Like if I am transmitting a mail from my mail ID, okay, that means what? I am using mail application. Okay, I am giving the user ID of the destination, that means what? My friend, some email ID @ gmail.com. Okay, so that means this message will be transmitted to the Gmail application only. Okay, it will not be delivered to Telnet application. It will not be given to what? FTP application. It will be given to what? Gmail application itself. So from which application it is being received and to which application it has to be transmitted, that will also be taken care by transport layer. Okay, so transport layer is going to handle how the message has to be delivered and from which application it is received and to which application it has to be delivered. So that process to process communication will be handled by transport layer. Okay, so that's why it is said to be what? Host to host protocol. Okay, so we are going to that is from which process to which process to process protocol also we can say. Okay, so that is also handled by transport layer. Okay, application layer is going to deal with the applications. Transport layer is going to deal with what? From the application the message will be given to what? Transport layer. So it will be deciding whether to go for TCP or UDP. So if it is deciding if it is TCP it will be used, or UDP it will use. So different port numbers will be there. Okay, and from there which application, from which application it has come. Okay, whether it is coming from the mail application, to mail application I have to deliver, or if it is a file transfer protocol, so from which file transmission application I am using and to which file transmission application I have to deliver. So all this will be handled at the transport layer. Okay, so that is what it is going to identify how it has to be delivered. Then coming to the next bottom layer, network layer. So once it has decided how it has to be delivered, whether to connection establishment or connectionless or which application to which application, all it has decided. Okay, now the next operation is what? When the data is transmitted. Okay, when the data is transmitted on the network, so how it has to be routed. Okay, from where it has to start. Okay, which switching element it has to reach, next which switching element, which router it has to take, which path it has to take. So the path identification will be done at the network layer. Okay, because when you are transmitting on the network means what? You will be having number of connection wires, you will be having routers, switches, all these devices will be placed. So these devices you are connecting. So a big kind of network, big mesh, it will be there. Okay, but when the data has to transmit it, so it has to cross the number of routers, links, and it has to reach to the destination. Okay, so how it has to be routed. So that routing you are going to perform in the network layer. And also in the network, each device will be identified with some address. Means routing means what? You have to go to this router. This router means it requires some address. Okay. And from that router to another router. So one more address you require. So what kind of address you are using? You are going to use IP address. To identify the devices in the network, you will be using the IP address. That IP can be of what? IPv4 or IPv6. IPv4 means what? Version 4. IPv6 means version 6. Okay, we'll be discussing about IP protocol in detail later. Okay, I'm just telling about each layer. Right? So that is what at the network layer. So network layer is trying to identify the path to the destination as well as and how these devices will be identified on the network with some IP address. So that IP addresses we are going to identify using the IP protocol. Okay. So that is what at the network layer. So this is application layer, transport layer, and the network layer. So each layer will be having some number of protocols. Okay. So here application level, you have some protocols, transport layer, some protocols, and IP, some protocols. And when you observe at the last layer, so last layer is dealing with what? Physical layer. Okay. So physical layer is, it is going to be in connection with the networks. Okay, so that's why it is said to be what? Networks. Okay, so above three layers we are defining as the protocol layers, and the bottom layer we are defining it as what? Networks. So networks means directly in connection with the network, like whether it is LAN, local area network, or remote packet radio, okay, or SANet, okay, or ARPANET. So different types of networks are there. So here these are dealing with the network. So what is the network and what kind of wires you are using, whether you are using wired one or wireless one you are using, okay, whether you are going for the local area network communication or you are going for the wide area network communication. So what kind of network you are using? So directly in connection with the network. Okay, so on the network, like if I am going for the Ethernet cable, so Ethernet I will be having what? Some format. So to convert into that particular format, okay, the signals, I need to generate the signals. So I'm going to take the message, okay, with all these things, and then error control, flow control, all information I am adding. Okay, then I am going to generate the signal. So the signal will be transmitted. Okay, so that operation, all operation will be done at the physical plus data link layer. So it is including the physical operation and data link layer. So data link layer, what it is going to do? It is going to perform the data operation. Okay, like error control information, flow control information, some additional information I am going to add. Okay, and then it will be converted into the signals, and those signals will be transmitted over the physical lines. Okay, for transmitting over the physical lines, you need to perform what? Modulation. Right, first you need to convert the data into the signals. Okay, those signals will be again modulated to increase the signal strength, and that will be transmitted over the lines. Okay, and each device will be identified with its IP address. If it is connection oriented, so then connection first, before that connection is established, otherwise the connection is not required, and which application to be reached, that all will be taken care, and the destination will be, at the destination the data will be transmitted. Okay, so like this the four layers of TCP/IP protocol architecture is going to perform. Okay, application layer, it is dealing with what? The applications. Then transport layer, it is dealing with the transport connection oriented or connectionless, which application to which application delivery, that will be handled by transport layer. Okay, and in the networks, how the path has to be identified, so that will be taken care by the network layer. And also in identifying the path, we require to identify the devices, so the devices will be identified with the address, that is IP address. IP means internet protocol. Okay, IP address, so that will be taken care by the network layer. And the error control, flow control operations, flow control operations, plus conversion of the data into the signals, modulation, demodulation, all these operations will be performed at the bottom. Okay, bottom layer. So that is called physical plus data link layer, or host to network layer. So these are the 4 layers of TCP IP protocol. Is there any doubt in these 4 layers? Yes, ma'am? Any doubt? Do respond. No. Okay, fine. Thank you. So there are what? Yes, there are 4 layers in TCP/IP protocol architecture. So each layer is going to handle some operation. So what operation? User level operations, that is concerning with what application it has to use. So that is application layer. Okay, whether to go for connection oriented or connectionless, and which application to which application delivery, that will be taken care by transport layer. Then coming to the network layer, the path identification, and in the path identification, how the device will be identified, that will be taken care by the network layer. And coming to the bottom layer, it will be dealing with what? Data link plus physical. Okay, so data link is what? For error control, flow control, those operations. And physical means the which network you are using, and according to that network, the data has to be transmitted, the signal generation, and how the signal will be transmitted on the lines, that will be taken care by this bottom layer, physical plus data link layer. So these are the 4 layers of TCP IP. Okay, so now you can see there is only 5 minutes remaining. So please post your attendance. Meanwhile, I'll continue. Okay, then. So that is whatever I told: host to network layer, physical layer, network access layer. Okay. So TCP protocol, transmission, application layer. So all this I have given the description over here. Okay. Then coming to how the operation is performed in the TCP/IP network. Okay. So you can see there is one host A, another host B. Okay, so there are 2 hosts, they want to communicate. So communication means what? How they are going to communicate with the networks. Yes or not? So it may be connected to some network, it may be connected to some network. So you may be having some routers in between. So this is said to be what? Some network connection. Okay, so that means what? You are using, like you may be using some internet service provider, like I am using what? Act to Corp network. Okay, Act Fiber I am using. Okay, some other may be using Airtel network. Some ISP I am using. Okay, so different networks will be using different different application. Okay, so different internet service providers may be using, so they may be connecting through what? Number of routers, right? Then coming to each host, the network software will be there. Okay, so that is having what? 4 layers. Okay, that is having 4 layers. So application layer, so what applications they are going to use? Okay, transport layer, then network layer. So this network layer sub layer is what network access protocol. Okay, so that is what how the root will be defined. Okay, then coming to physical layer, data link plus physical layer, right? So here you can see there are what different application Y, application X. Okay, so from which application to which application the data has to be transmitted, who will be taken care? That is what TCP. Okay, so TCP transport layer protocol. So it is going to take care about which application to which application. If I am using application X, Gmail application, okay, so that is what some email application. So here also with the email application only it can be opened. Yes or no? If I am transmitting through the email, it cannot be opened with what some YouTube or any other application. So it is not possible. So from which application to which application it will be delivered. Okay, so that will be taken care by what? Transport layer. Okay, so if I am using connection oriented, then logical connection will be established. That is shown here. Okay, and in the transmission, because the data will be going through what different layers and it will be reached to the destination. It will be reached to the destination. So when it is going through the network, so in the network you may be having number of routers, okay, and the devices. So from the source to the destination, so which source to the which destination it has to go. So you need to identify the devices in the network. So that devices, how it will be identified? Using the IP address. So that's why it is given as what? Global internet address. So IP address. You may be heard about the IP addresses like 192.168.10.1. So different types of addresses. How it will be, how IP addressing will be. So that we'll be discussing in detail later. Okay, but you should know the device in the network will be identified with IP address. Okay, so the IP address. Then through which physical line? Okay, so what is the line and what kind of signal it has to generate? So that will be handled with the physical layer and it will be going through the network and in the reverse again. So first the data is received and that will be converted from the signal to the bits, and from the bits you are going to identify from which source it has come. So any errors are there, that we are going to identify. If there is no error, it will be given to what the top layers and it will be going to the application, from which application it has received and to which application it has to reach. So that will be taken care by the transport layer, and in which application we have to open the data. Okay, so once it is received, from application only we can identify, we can read. Okay, so that application we are going to open and we can access the data. Okay, so this is how the operation will be done in TCP/IP protocol. Okay, so if you have any doubts, please ask me. We have 1 more minute time. In the next class, we'll see about the other protocol architecture. Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So please post your attendance in the chat box. And once you post the attendance, you can leave.